Yeah, you read the title right. Rejected a terrible offer. This is an offer that I do believe is terrible, not just for one team involved, but for both teams. And we'll get into why this actually is one of the better decisions the Red Wings have made in the past year. But to catch you up to speed as to what we're actually talking about, we're referring to another Detroit Red Wings trade idea. And in fact, this one is one that apparently went through to some extent. There was this article posted on mlive.com by Ansar Khan. Should the Red Wings pursue a trade for a goalie? Now, if you've been following the channel long enough, you would have seen the videos that we've been making on potential Red Wings targets, all brought up by Ted Kulfin's article on the Detroit News. We talked about the Pittsburgh guys in Murray and Jarry, we talked about the St. Louis guys in Jake Allen, Jaden Schwartz, and we talked about the Toronto guys. Now, the big thing here is the St. Louis Blues, because this article over here on mlive.com goes over a few other goaltending options that the Red Wings could probably go for. In fact, Ansar Khan also highlights the same Jake Allen that we spoke about a few weeks ago. That video got 10,000 views. I am absolutely astonished that it did, but that video had a huge audience, and people were talking about an Allen trade in the comments section underneath. But, according to Ansar Khan in this article, it appears that a Jake Allen trade to Detroit is not new news. Jake Allen of the St. Louis Blues is another option. After Craig Binnington led the Blues to last year's Stanley Cup title, I don't know who that is, Craig Binnington, you might have to correct me in the comments below, the Red Wings rejected the St. Louis Blues offer of Allen for Howard near the start of the 2018-19 season. Allen, who's 29, has 1 year remaining at a $4.35 million cap hit before becoming an unrestricted free agent. Now you're hearing that right. According to sources, the Blues wanted Jimmy Howard in exchange for Jake Allen about 2-ish years ago. And I'm calling this a terrible trade proposal for both sides, because in my opinion, this kind of deal would have really changed the course of how both of these teams ended up going their separate ways. What happened in 2018-19? Well, the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. A lot of that did have to do with the brand new guy they brought in Jordan Binnington, but there's no doubt that Jake Allen and Chad Johnson were a part of the success too. It's just not in a very visible way. The fact is they were there, but at a time in 2018-19, the Blues were indeed one of the worst teams in the NHL. The fact is, though, Jimmy Howard in 2018-19 was somewhat worse than Jake Allen. Statistically speaking, Jimmy Howard in 2018-19 had a .307 goals against average and a .909 save percentage. Jake Allen had a .283 goals against average and a .905 save percentage. Obviously, the team does play a part in that, and the St. Louis Blues definitely do have a better team than the Red Wings do. But at a time in 2018-19, that wasn't all too evident. Again, the Red Wings were one of the worst teams that year, and the Blues were too. So there wasn't really too much of a difference between these teams at some points during the year. However, when you take a look at how things have gone this season, this is where I take a look at this trade idea and I say, darn, we're happy it didn't go through for both sides, because this year's NHL performance from both the Blues and the Red Wings could have been significantly different. Now, what a trade like this would have looked like if it was 1-for-1, assumably, would have seen Jimmy Howard switch roles with Jake Allen. Both of them are goalies, and both of them are being paid around $4-ish million. Jimmy Howard expires this offseason, Jake Allen expires the next, but the difference in performance between these two guys is so drastic this season that I think just taking a look at the numbers, you can kind of get where I'm going here when I say this is a terrible proposal for both teams. Jake Allen, in this season's worth of play, had 24 games played, a .215 goals against average, and a .927 save percentage. Jimmy Howard had a .420 goals against average and an .882 save percentage. Both of these guys were technically backups, because Binnington was the guy in St. Louis, and Bernier was the guy in Detroit. So, a trade like this, if you swap both of these players, what you would get is a St. Louis Blues team that has A goalie with a 4.20 goals against average and an 8.82 save percentage. Does that not seem like a disaster waiting to happen? You have a Jake Allen over here who played 24 games, and he won 12 of them. He had 12 wins, 6 losses, and 3 overtime losses. Meanwhile, Jimmy Howard, who played 20-something games himself, had 2 wins, 23 losses, and 2 overtime losses. This guy was bad. And the fact that he was bad, and sure, the Red Wings defense did hang him out to dry sometimes, I will say that him being bad is not a reflection of purely only his talent, but the team he was playing on definitely does play a part in that. But the fact is, Howard was not a good goalie this season. If you have the same Howard like this, playing in St. Louis instead, getting 20-ish starts, and he loses 18 of them, your St. Louis Blues are not a top 4 Western Conference team. Your St. Louis Blues are not anywhere near as good as they are in the standings today. They're further back, and instead, they may be fighting in a play-in qualifying series, or who knows, maybe they're not even in the play-in series at all. You had 12 wins out of Jake Allen, and you had 2 wins out of Jimmy Howard. Imagine if Jimmy Howard is on the team and instead St. Louis loses the difference of 10 games. I know that's not exactly how it works, but just bear with me, this is a hypothetical example. If the Blues lose 10 more games this season in regulation, their points total drops to 74. They would just be barely ahead of the Blackhawks in terms of their point production, and that would have been second last in the Central. So, in hindsight, it's very good for them that they did not trade Jake Allen for Jimmy Howard. And on the flip side, you have Jake Allen, a guy who was good. He was great this season, a 9.27 save percentage. That's legitimately really, really good. And if you took this guy and you put him on a Red Wings team, you take that same difference of 10 games. Okay, 10 games forward, what happens then? Well, all of a sudden the Red Wings have 59 points instead of 39. They're 3 behind the Senators, etc. You know how the draft lottery went. But Jimmy Howard did not play the same amount of games as Jake Allen. He actually played a little bit more. So you give the extra few games to Jake Allen, who knows if he wins them, all of a sudden the Red Wings may have indeed been able to overtake a team or two. We know that a good goalie can sometimes steal you games, and this past season Jake Allen was just better than Jimmy Howard. Would he have been much worse than a 9.27 goalie if he was playing in front of Detroit? Yes, absolutely he would have been. But we've seen it from Jonathan Bernier, a good goalie can still do somewhat okay for this Red Wings team. So it is just kind of interesting to me to take a look at how the Red Wings had an offer on the table that would have changed the future. Changed how good the Blues would have been, changed how bad the Red Wings would have been, and tossed everything up. Who knows, maybe this could have worked out for Detroit. Maybe, in some worlds, you could say, okay, maybe they overtake the San Jose Sharks in the rankings, and instead of finishing up with 39 points, they finish up with 64. They tie the Kings, and they're with the Sharks. All of a sudden, that's an opportunity at either second or third overall, because the San Jose pick ended up being third, and the LA pick went up to second. Maybe from that perspective you say, okay, that's something that I could definitely say was a win, but obviously that's not guaranteed. I just think it's very interesting that this offer was apparently on the table, and man, it was apparently rejected. At the time, it honestly looked like a pretty okay-ish deal, because at the end of the 2017-18 season, Jake Allen was at a 906 save percentage and 275 goals against average. Jimmy Howard was at a 910 save percentage and a 285 goals against average on that bad Red Wings team. So they seemed kind of in the same ballpark around the time when the trade was made, but hindsight is 2020. We know how Howard is now. We know how Allen is now. We know how the Blues are now, and we know how the Red Wings are now. So talk to me in the comments below what you think about this trade idea that apparently went through, but apparently that the Red Wings said no to. It's Jake Allen for Jimmy Howard over here. Do you think this is something that you would have liked to see? Do you think this would have changed history in the same way that I've talked about it over here? Or do you think I'm just kind of pulling stuff out of my behind and forcing it down your throat, even though it doesn't really make all too much sense? Let me know in the comments below what you think about this video. I hope you enjoyed this. Social Trolls 99, and bye.